Well, I guess the memories of 1991 World Cup obviously were the final whistle in the final against England at Twickenham. There was just a sense of a great relief and, you know, a job done. I guess for a moment and a particular game where the team really stepped up a level, it was in Ireland, the quarter-final against Ireland at Lansdowne Road, where the sort of a tenacious Irish side actually took the lead through a Gordon Hamilton try with about 4 minutes to go. I was captain that day because Nick Farr-Jones had gone off injured in the first couple of minutes, and somehow we had to galvanise the troops and come up with a plan, and that's where the team just got together and said, well, this is what we're going to do, and went out and did it, and we scored the try in the corner and ended up winning the game. And from then, that's when the team really got into another gear and showed that we had various ways of winning games. And the next game, the semi-final against New Zealand, I think the first half of that game we played some of the best rugby I've been associated with in an Australian team. And for the first half, I don't think we made a mistake and scored a number of great tries against what was a great All Black team and who were probably favourites for that World Cup. And then in the second half of that game, the New Zealanders threw the kitchen sink at us, and we defended mainly. We hardly touched the ball in the second half. So it just showed that Australian team in '91 had a variety of ways of winning matches, whether it be defence, attack, or through our kicking. And it was a really happy team, a great blend of experience and youth in the team, and enormous amounts of talent. When you look at a team that had sort of Eels and Horan and Little and Farr-Jones and Campese, it was an abundance of talent, and it was a very happy time to be part of Australian rugby. In 1991 was probably the year I struggled the most at World Cup with goal kicking. I remember earlier that year we'd lost a Bledisloe Cup match, one-off Bledisloe Cup match in Auckland, and I'd missed a penalty to win the match in the last couple of minutes, which Sean Fitzpatrick quite often reminds me about. It wasn't an easy kick, but it probably one I would have got 7 or 8 times out of 10, and happened to miss it, and it counted. And so my confidence wasn't at a particularly high level going into 1991 World Cup, and we had different balls that we were using, and I was struggling with those. So it was a constant battle in the World Cup to kick my goals. I was very pleased in the final to, under probably the greatest pressure that I'd had, I think I kicked 3 out of 4, and most of them were fairly difficult, and in a swirling win at Twickenham. So in the end, under pressure, I got there, but I did more practice at that World Cup than I'd ever previously done, just trying to come to grips with my low self-confidence and also a difficult ball to kick in those conditions. Yeah, I'd say New Zealand definitely favourites going into this World Cup, and the more times we say it, the more pressure that gets on them, gets to them, or is put on them. It's their World Cup to lose. At the moment, for the past 3 years, they've been the best team running around by some distance, I would think. They've got a very experienced team with some genuine game breakers. And so for me though, the big question mark is at some stage during this World Cup coming up, they are going to be put under pressure. The tide is going to go against them at some stage, and it's how they cope with that, whether they go, oh no, here we go again, what are we going to do? Or they just ride through it and use their skill and ability as they have done outside World Cups for the last 3 years to override that. And with the expectations from the public, from the rest of the rugby world, and from within the team, there's a huge burden of pressure that is on the backs of these All Blacks, and that is the only thing I think that can beat them at the World Cup, apart from a one-off spectacular performance by other teams, and that can happen. New Zealand have got match winners in Daniel Carter. I think he's a very classy, elegant player. He seems to have a lot of time on the ball. He makes right decisions. He's not afraid to run himself. Now, there's been a lot of talk about if he gets injured, what happens, and that's a big negative for New Zealand. If Dan Carter gets injured for some reason early on, the next level down, whoever that may be, is quite a way down. And while they may be good players, they're not Dan Carter, and that will create some nervousness within the team, within the coaching staff, but particularly among supporters, and that will be felt by the team, I think. Richie McCaw, great captain, an unbelievable player, how he just keeps going. He takes a battering every game, and he's an amazing anticipation of where the ball's going to be, and great decision making when he does do it. And then Sonny Bill Williams out in the backs, I think, is somebody that could really set the World Cup alight. He's got skills that not a lot of people have, particularly somebody who is of that size. I mean, he's 6'4", and however big however heavy he is, it's to be able to do what he does with the ball and the speed he does it is difficult to defend against. I certainly think that Dan Carter will be targeted by oppositions, but then tell me a number 10 that hasn't been targeted over the years. He's used to that. He's used to dealing it, and he draws penalties out from overzealous flankers and opposition from trying to get to him. And New Zealand's such a team that if you concentrate on Dan Carter and trying to get to him, there will be spaces for other people around, and they're good enough to capitalise on those opportunities. So it's like every fly half and every team, I think people will be trying to get to the Australian fly half, whether that's Quade Cooper or Kurtley Beale or Matt Gitto. They try to get to the fly half. Wilkinson for England as well, Sexton and O'Gara for Ireland. It'll be the same for every team. Get to the playmaker and put him off his game, and you're in with a chance. I see Australia being in a pretty decent position at the moment. We've got some fantastic backs, some very talented backs who can create things from nothing. Quade Cooper at fly half, Kurtley Beale, James O'Connor, Matt Gitto, and others. It's almost always the question about Australian rugby. You know, yes, you've got the backs and nobody questions that. It's whether the forwards can hold their own, and if they can, we're in with a big chance. And I'm sort of buoyed with confidence through what the Queensland Reds did this year. They're much unheralded pack, competed with the likes of the Crusaders from New Zealand and the Bulls and other teams, that the Sharks and the Stormers, etc., that do have big forward packs, and the Reds competed with them pretty well. There is a view that a lot of the South African forwards in particular may be a little bit ageing. A lot of them were involved in the last World Cup, and it's a fact. No nation has ever won back-to-back World Cups, and a lot of the time that's the reason why. You know, players that won a World Cup have held on a little bit long and want to do another one, and the reputation that they have, well, they've done it for us once before, so therefore they can do it again. It's a difficult argument to argue against. However, South Africa at the moment, some of their teams, you know, in the Super Rugby tournament this year didn't particularly perform like they would have wanted to. Talking specifically maybe about the Bulls, who have been champions the last few years and who have provided a bulk of the forward pack to South African rugby. England are a little bit of a mystery at the moment. You know, against Australia last November, it's the best performance I've seen an England team put on when they demolished Australia at Twickenham, and they looked fantastic that day. But since then, they've had fits and starts. They've looked the goods at times, and then looked diabolical at other times. All I can say, as an Australian sitting at Twickenham last November, I thought England were outstanding, and should Australia meet England in the World Cup, that memory of that game will be pretty strong in both teams. And so I know England will be a bit more positive about beating Australia if that happens. But at the moment, England have got some exciting young backs, particularly at full back and on the wings. Foden and Ashton are exceptional players, and if they get given opportunities, they can create opportunities to win games. My concern with England a little bit is the nature, the makeup of the centres, and also the form of Toby Flood towards the end of the domestic season, both with England and with his club Leicester. He seemed to struggle a little bit in general play and also in his goal kicking. But you know, players they do go through form slumps, and a rest has come for him at the right time. I think Martin Johnson as a coach has really developed into the role. It was always going to take him some time. He's never done it before. He was a great captain and a great player, but that doesn't necessarily make him a great manager straight away or great coach straight away. But I see him changing quite a lot over the last year and a half, 2 years. He has developed into a role, he's developed a style, he's become more confident, he's become more relaxed around the media, and I see it in the team. The team seems a little bit more relaxed. They're not scared of him anymore. He seems to be, you know, when he first came in, he was this aura, this charismatic sort of icon of English rugby, and the players, a lot of them were quite young at the time, and you know, I think they were scared of him and scared to try anything on the field just in case he might get angry at them for the way they played. And so there was a period of time there where the players were trying to discover what Martin Johnson was all about and what he wanted, and there was a time when Martin Johnson was doing the same thing. And I think they've come out the other side and they seem a happy team. From the lesser nations, so-called lesser nations at the World Cup, some surprises could come from Samoa, I feel, maybe Fiji as well. Argentina, for me, were a fantastic team at the last World Cup, but I think a lot of those players were sort of at their prime at that World Cup, and since then, maybe on the wane a little bit, but I'm talking mainly about backs there. Their forwards are always strong and a team that cannot be taken lightly. When I mentioned some of the islands, Samoa and Fiji and Tonga for that matter, a lot of their players play overseas now and are very experienced and in different conditions and with different styles and cultures of rugby. So they will be, they will be fit. They have enormous capacity for physicality, which I think South Africa, Fiji and Samoa and Wales are in the same group. Now that's an enormously physical group, that one. Whoever comes through that's going to be pretty battered and bruised. Right, what I think is going to happen at the World Cup. Look, I've said it for the last heavens knows how many World Cups, but New Zealand to win. They've been unfortunate in the last World Cups. I mean, they've lost one game in 4 years, basically, before the World Cup last time. And they're a good team, they're at home, how they deal with the pressure. So it's theirs to lose. So if I had 10 quid, I'd be putting it on New Zealand. I probably wouldn't get very good odds. And my value money probably would be with Australia or South Africa to follow them up. But it's going to be very interesting how New Zealand deal with the pressure. That's how they deal with that is a key to this World Cup. As to players who I think might be stars at the World Cup, Sonny Bill Williams I think has the potential to be somebody that could set it alight. Just because of his physical nature, he does things that people find very difficult to do, some people of his size. And hark back to 1995 when Jonah Lomu burst on the scene, his big thing was that he was physically different from everybody else and had this ability that was another level up compared to everybody else. And I think, while not the same difference, I think Sonny Bill Williams has the ability to set the World Cup alight. Having said that, Australia have some wonderful players in the backs. Beale and Quade Cooper's been extraordinary in the Super Rugby tournament. He's wonderful to watch. Rugby union today, I think, it's a totally different game to when I used to play. The speed of the game, the rules are different for a start, which has speeded up the game. It's kept the ball in play a lot longer, which not necessarily a good thing. I mean, the ball in play is great, but it's what happens with the ball when it's in play. You know, whether we have countless one-off sort of rucks and mauls and, you know, just players one off the ruck. I mean, that's not quality ball in play time. Over the last year or so, though, the interpretations have encouraged people to take more risks in attack, and I think that's a good thing. The game is different again also with the size of the players now. They're huge men, and fatigue is not so much a factor as it used to be. When somebody gets tired, you can take him off, but they're also, you know, we've got people that are a lot fitter than when I used to play, and you used to target props towards the end of the game who'd just run out of steam. Nowadays, the props are as fit as everybody else, and if they're tired, they take them off and put somebody else on that's not as tired. So fatigue is no longer a factor in the game. Having said that, the game is a lot faster also. So I'm hopeful that the continuation of players who are trying to score tries and not stop opposition from scoring tries is the way that rugby is being played at the moment. And I think all teams are trying to do that, because the rules and the interpretations encourage teams to have a go and keep possession rather than kicking it away or be happy defending.